Thank you. So this is how I dress when I go sailing. And I think that we are actually sailing together now. It's a navigation that needs to happen. With collaboration, we need to take good care of the resources we have on the boat. And we have a shared direction for our journey. And I think it is to secure our home in the universe, the only home we have, which is pictured here to my left, the biosphere, this thin layer of life around the planet that we are part of. And at the Stockholm Resilience Centre, we bring together scientists from the natural and social sciences, and we work together with change makers in business, policy, local communities across the world to understand how we can secure this home. And how we can do that in a situation where we have become a dominant force of change on the planet. It's so dominant, this force that we are as humanity, that geologists have named this epoch the Anthropocene for mankind. Business is, of course, a key driver of change on this planet, a key reason to why we're in the Anthropocene, but therefore also a key driver of solutions. So what I will do is to first establish why we work so hard on this mission, and I think we all share this, but I think the message that came from the IPCC last year in their latest report was so strong that the scientific evidence is unequivocal, and that climate change is a threat to both the ecosystem's health and our well-being, and also that the window to secure a livable future is closing. That's really strong words to come from science. And what we do now, this generation, people in this room, will shape the conditions for all life on Earth, including ourselves, for thousands of years to come. The future is in our hands. And we do not only emit greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, as we've heard many times today. And I think these graphs are so telling. It's showing the effects of the great acceleration that began in the 1950s, where we can see the socioeconomic trends coupled with the Earth system trends. And we can see that we not only emit greenhouse gases, but we flow nitrogen and phosphorus into the coastal zones and the lakes, causing algae blooms. We are cutting down forests. We are using more and more fresh water, adding pollution, and so on. And all of this is massive, and we need to handle it. And then you can ask, what do we actually know about this planet that we inhabit and that we're now such a big force of change on? Well, we're only now beginning to understand this as a one system, a self-regulating system, where the oceans and the glaciers and the North and South Pole ice and the forest and the wetlands and the ocean currents and the atmospheric currents are all coming together in a dynamic way, interacting with all life on Earth to create a very stable climate that we've been lucky to have for the past 10,000 years, which has allowed us to develop civilizations and cities and impact investments and business and science and music and all of these beautiful things. But we've now also discovered that some of these areas on the planet and these self-regulating systems are approaching tipping points beyond which they might not create this stable environment anymore, but actually start accelerating the warming and the change. And the planetary boundaries concept was developed to provide a holistic picture of these pressures that we put on the planet that is rooted in the Earth system science. So they help us expand from this carbon tunnel vision that we've been stuck in and define a safe operating space within which humans can thrive and business can thrive. And we can do that without then triggering those tipping points that I mentioned. And the planetary boundaries don't tell us what the solutions are. They also don't tell us where the drivers come from, what economic activities we need to act on. But they give us science-based analysis of the urgency of the situation, the severity of the situation, and where we need to prioritize our work. And if we believe that consumer demand and regulations will actually follow when we see these threats towards humanity, then I think the planetary boundaries give you a good hint of where that will go and a framework for innovation. And so far, 9 boundaries have been identified, and 6 of them have now been transgressed, which means that we are in very risky terrain, and that we need solutions from all of you to take us back into the safe operating space. And biosphere integrity, or climate change, of course, results from greenhouse gas emissions. CO2 also causes ocean acidification, which is one of the other boundaries. Biosphere integrity means healthy and biodiverse ecosystems that we're now losing. Land system change means the conversion of land into cropland and also the loss of forests. Novel entities means chemical pollution. And then we also have the biogeochemical flows, which are nitrogen and phosphorus that I mentioned, coming mainly from agriculture. Ozone depletion and freshwater use, and novel, and let's see, because there's actually a net here, so I can't see my text. And it's so many boundaries to keep track of, right? So air pollution, ozone depletion, and freshwater are the 3 other boundaries. And here we've transgressed the green water boundary, which is water available to plants. So it's either too dry or too wet for many plants today, because we've changed the water cycles. And these planetary boundaries also interact. So, for example, improving the land use boundary and restoring land ecosystems would decrease nutrient leakage, mitigate biodiversity loss and climate change. And halting the leakage of novel entities, this chemical pollution, into the biosphere would improve ocean health, water and air quality, as well as land ecosystems, and this in turn would have positive effects on the climate. So, helping humanity back into the safe operating space that the planetary boundaries define should be our main business opportunity, and doing that while we secure that we can meet the needs of all people on this planet. And the good news is that the window is still open, as the IPCC said. We also know pretty much what we need to do. And the recipe overall, as we've heard today, is to leave the fossil fuel-driven, exploitative, linear economy behind and move towards one that's run by renewable energy, that's circular, and that actually restores and regenerates both ecosystems and society. And we need to make this shift in the energy system, of course, as you can see on this graph of where the emissions come from, and in industry and transport and buildings, but also in the agriculture and forestry sector and the way we manage our lands. We need to use the remaining carbon budget really wisely, not use it all up in 7 years and then try to drop it to 0, but rather follow the carbon law, which is about halving emissions every decade. And that's, of course, about the reducing we heard, but it's also about removing, so shifting agriculture from a source to a sink, and also repairing, maintaining those ecosystems that have so far actually absorbed half of the emissions we have caused up until today. So they are our best friends. We need to start collaborating with them. You've all seen these different graphs of how cost projections and also adoption, these projections always fail because once these innovations have gained momentum, they grow so much faster than we can ever imagine. We can also see that for the first halving, we actually have the solutions in sector after sector to do the first, what we need to do the first decade. And in the meantime, we can innovate so that we can do the second halving. But I also want to end on the note that real transformation requires us not only to develop these radical innovations that will take us into the future, but also to start dismantling the systems that are no longer fit for purpose. Part of those systems that we have today are worth conserving, so there's work that needs to go into that as well. And then there are some innovations that are feasible today, and they will take us as a stepping stone towards the future, but they will be left behind once the most viable solutions actually take off. So it's good to think, I think, through this framework, where are you operating, and to make sure that we use the strategies we need. I would say that the shift towards sustainability and our journey on the sailing is getting there, but it's way too slow. So we need to accelerate, and everyone in this room is needed in that journey. We've heard some positive signs now from policy and from tech in the morning, but these need to come together and also take that more holistic approach. So what can we do then? I think we can all in this room ask one fundamental question, which is, will this company or this investment actually serve human needs within the planetary boundaries? And how we do that, I will go through more with you if you come and meet me at 2 p.m. for the workshop Planetary Boundaries for Capitalists. Thank you so much for your attention.